Hi, I am Delphina Bailey Nichols, and it's Brahma Muhurta during the 15th of Av, and I just wanted to speak some things that I haven't really spoken on openly with anyone. And I had made an Eliyah inspired decree a couple of weeks ago, and and it involved Malakim, also known as angels. And there are people who don't associate with me who picked up on that really quick because they're spiritual workers and they probably have no idea that the whole thing originated with me. Like, no clue, because they don't know me and we don't talk. So, anyway, one girl, she picked up on it like within an hour, 2 hours after I did it. So, here's what I wanted to say for my statement, because part of what I stated for my Eliyahu style decree is that, for this Yom Kippur, for this ELUL season, I want the Creator and the highest divine authorities to judge thoroughly and fairly. Key words are thoroughly and fairly between me and members of my family, members of my race, and members of my nation. And, here's some things that I haven't really spoken on with anyone. My oldest son is 5, and my biracial twin sons, they're 4, and I'm 35. Now, when my children were younger, when they were first taken, I went through all kinds of hell. And I was even in diapers for a couple of months. And but I'm not going to go into my details on my medical stuff. I'm on disability assistance now. But in summary, I just had a whole lot of people who just were very dismissive to me and did none of what I truly needed while I was waiting for my disability assistance to start. And when I would call my sons over the phone or over Skype, either or, like sometimes when I'd call them on the phone, my cousin Angela, Hugh Watts, who has custody, she would take it away from me mid-conversation. And my firstborn son, he would cry because he was the one who had the most time with me. And sometimes she would hover over the phone telling them what to say to me. Like one time I asked them if they remembered me because I had a lot of visits with them. And she hovered over the phone telling them to say that they don't remember me. And it's for that reason why I was distant and why I kept made my calls very infrequent, because I felt like if I had called more often and made a lot more contact that she would cut me off from them. And, my instincts were not wrong, because on January 20th, when my oldest son, who was 4 at the time, January 20th of this year, when he answered the phone while my cousin was gone away at church and my sons were alone with teenagers and grown men, he told me himself that he had been touched inappropriately, and I asked questions carefully without leading him towards a specific answer. I gathered what information I could. And, about this issue of him being touched inappropriately by a teenager or a very immature adult, one or the other. And after I had that conversation with my son, I was not allowed to speak to my children for 2 months. And my telephone number was quickly blocked. And the only reason why I've had a few conversations with them now is because I got a text mail number through Wi-Fi so that I could try to call the house from a number that's not blocked. So I didn't make the wrong decision by being distant and calling less often. I didn't do the wrong thing. And also, today Angela was saying that she's had my youngest son Joseph seeing a psychiatrist ever since he was 1 year old. Now Joseph, he's really smart. He's been playing video games since he was 2. He's really smart. My youngest baby, the youngest twin. And when he was taken at birth, and me and my mother were put out of the hospital, and I was bleeding so heavily that I had to wear diapers to catch all the blood, I wasn't fully recovered. And in the hotel room with my mother, I was having sharp pains in my stomach. And in my mind, I could see images of my child screaming and looking angry, and it kind of looked reddish. So I told my mother to pick up the phone and call the hospital. When she called the nursery, the nurses said, "Oh, well, the babies are being removed and taken away to Kings County illegally right now." The police refused to do that illegal stuff, so the Fresno hospital where my sons were born did it using their private security. And the exact moment when I asked my mom to call the hospital, when I was having the pains in my stomach and the images of my youngest son Joseph, that's when those strangers were coming to take them away. And the women who were working in the nursery were sick women who believe that newborn babies don't have any feelings. I had my phone in my hospital gown recording, and they didn't know that. That's why they had called the police and asked the police to put me out, because I had recorded the illegal and also sick things that those women were saying in the hospital and doing. 9 times out of 10, if I've been kicked out of a hospital by police, or if there's a restraining order for me to not return to a hospital, is because I recorded them without their knowledge. Not for screaming or cussing them out or threatening them. I didn't do that to those people ever in those hospitals. No. I never did any of that. I swear before the Creator that every time that the police said no to the Fresno hospital and they put me out, that it was because I had recorded the illegal and sick things they were saying things like, "Oh, babies don't have feelings. All they do is just cry for milk." And so right there, the future of my babies was placed in the hands of females who were cruel and also unintelligent, having a very exceptionally low emotional intelligence and exceptionally high corruption. And my youngest son, who I picked up on in real time while they were being removed from the hospital, when I had my mother to call, that's the one who was singled out to be sent to a psychiatrist at 1 year old, like my cousin says, if she's telling the truth. What kind of person sends a 1 year old to a psychiatrist, and what happened to him? What the hell did they do that even made it necessary for him to go? It's one thing for them to commit this crime against an adult or a teenager who is highly intuitive and has spiritual senses. But to do that shit to a toddler, labeling a toddler mentally ill because he's spiritually perceptive and maybe not keeping quiet about a faggot doing something sick to him, or maybe not keeping quiet about things he's perceiving that's not right. You know, something happened, and I'm pretty sure that whatever the reason for them trying to label my 1-year-old mentally ill, sending him to a psychiatrist, I'm pretty sure it's not his fault. And, yeah, like I said, I had to fight really hard and raise a lot of hell just to have some degree of action taken on the situation with a dude touching my sons inappropriately. That's if they ever did anything at all. So if he's allegedly been talking to a psychiatrist since 1-year-old, then why the hell was nothing done when my sons were being hurt by a dude who's gay, you know, or bisexual? You know, and honestly, like I said, I wasn't allowed to talk to my sons for 2 months, and I can't even call them from my regular phone number because my oldest told me what was wrong January 20th. You know, and they just forced me out of their lives. It's to the point where my babies don't even want to talk to me half the time with all these adults working so hard at trying to drive a wedge between us. And it's not out of love. Some of them are not as financially stable as they claim. You know, my children were basically sold, like I stated in my previous recording. You know, and just all the things my relatives did in support of the people who were hurting me and forcing instability, all the things they were doing to trash my name and disregard all the good I've done in the lives of over 200 black children, and all the good I've done in the lives of a lot of black married couples, they disregarded all that. And I remember the one thing that used to hurt me the deepest was how my mother used to talk about separating my children and sending each one to a different family member so a different family member could raise one kid and get a check and just pay a Mexican below average wage to raise my children. I am an honors chemistry student, or I was when I was younger. I did multivariable vector calculus. I was doing calculus 3. I was not a stupid young person. And like I said, I helped a lot of children in a lot of families. And here they are talking about forcing me out of my children's lives and paying random Mexicans from unknown background slave wages to raise my children, after I had given them several years of free child care and tutoring and never asked for 1 penny. That's how much my family thinks of me. And the few times I did try to live with them and act as a team player after I got hurt, the contributions I made was looked at as of zero value. Like if I spent $300-400 on groceries and cooked and cleaned to contribute to the household, that had zero value. And I would have given up half my disability check too on top of that. Really, I was spending some of my disability check for food. I was contributing. You know, and the only reason why I didn't do a bigger portion of my disability check is because I was being bullied and every day and threatened with assault Like, literally over next to nothing. And I got to a point where I'm like, like I said, with people like this, any attempt to defend myself, that's defined as disrespect because that's their culture. That's black culture. That attitude where, oh, I'll abuse you, I'll treat you like shit, I'll do the worst shit imaginable, you gotta respect me. That's black culture. The negative part of it. There's some positive things, but there's a lot of shit that needs to change too. They're not gonna change it willingly. A lot of people, no. That's why, I am not exaggerating when I said that I tried everything within reason and exhausted every possible option, literally, to deal with these issues that have affected me and my children and everybody under the sun just running wild, trying to run off with them and trying to hide the shit that they done wrong. The only thing that matters is that everything looks like it's my fault. And see, black people, they like to say that certain problems are only common in white families or white communities. And that's actually not true. See, with a black family, you'll have the whole family to turn on just one person to make sure they keep shit quiet if incest or pedophilia or rape happens in the family. Like with the celebrity Iyanla, her whole family turned on her at 9 years old, too young to be feeling attracted to anyone, and they all turned against her to keep it quiet, keep it in the family, and they forced her to continue living with the uncle who raped her at 9. And she wasn't even an adult, and her whole family turned on just her to make sure it stayed quiet so they could keep up the illusion that incest and pedophilia is just a white people's problem. And they'll want to learn, they'll want to study how to prevent these problems. They don't want to, some people, they don't want to learn how to do better with managing the adults in their family or managing the children in their family. Like, I think when they made that decision to all turn on Iyanla, the celebrity with the mental health talk show, when her family all turned on her together to keep it quiet, I think they did that because maybe her uncle had a job. Maybe her uncle had an income. She was living with those relatives because her mom was struggling. Her mom loved her enough that she didn't want her baby to get emotionally abused or neglected or physically abused with strangers for 18 years. That happens to a lot of foster kids. A lot of them where they get abused, emotionally neglected, sexually exploited. It happens a lot, but you don't see that in those little bright, shiny commercials on TV. And Iyanla's mother didn't want that for her, and that's why she took the risk of sending her daughter to family. And the uncle, he probably had a job, he probably had an income. That might be the main reason why the entire family turned on her at 9 and forced her to stay quiet instead of sending her uncle to jail. Now, under the new laws in some states, if they sent most of the people in her family to jail for turning on her to keep quiet, okay, well then that means she would have spent the rest of her life with with no family ties, ostracism, and also with a lot of black people in the community she was raised in turning on her too. If the police had got involved, it would have been over with. Half the people in her neighborhood probably wouldn't even speak to her anymore. They'd be thinking, oh my God, she's a monster. She got her whole family arrested for not telling. If she had done that back then, if it wasn't even an option legally back then, that's how that would have went down. it would have just been the whole neighborhood against her and not just her family. And, you know, even with Africans, they'll be saying that certain things are only white people's problems, but I think the truth is that there's some serious issues and some things that needs to change, and I think Africans probably have a tendency to do that too, where they'll have the whole family to turn against just one person to make sure that stuff stays quiet. And they're overseas, they're not in America, so there ain't gonna be no laws to fight against a problem like that. Probably not within the next 50 to 100 or 1,000, however many years. It's probably not going to happen in Africa, but this is America. It's different. You know, so I'm saying that to say that, you know, just like you have white people who fight with their communities and lose every day over these kinds of issues and how it should be handled. You know, there are black people too who fight with these types of issues and fight over how it should be handled. Because not everything that everybody thinks about how it should be handled is okay. And in the case of my cousins, blocking my number so I couldn't call my children after my oldest son told me what was happening over the phone. You know, that plus all those times that they used to snatch the phone away from him, making him cry when he was smaller. You know, and hanging over the phone, telling them how they're supposed to, you know, telling them to say they don't remember me. You know, stuff like that, it makes me feel like some of my relatives belong in the lowest pit of hell. It does. That's how it makes me feel in my heart as a mother. The way they handle issues. Yeah, they know how to make stuff look good. But there's a lot of things they're not handling in the right way, and it's not right. And after all that I've done for people in my family and outside of my family over the years, I don't deserve to have the future of my children dictated by any woman who is compassionless or lacking good sense or arrogant and greedy for money. And in regard to the whole population control issue, black women, well, really, black people are less than 12% of the population. When you exclude immigrants from Africa, South America, and other countries, American-born blacks are even less than that. But everywhere you go, people claim we're half of their city, half of their county, but when you look at the statistics, those of us who's actually born here, from families that's been in this country for several generations, those of us, we are less than 12% of the population. A lot of these other Negroes are not even from here. You know, and then, you know, part of my family is Native. You know, on both sides of my maternal grandmother, both of her parents were, you know, they were mixed. They came from, the families descended from the Bennett's Creek Reservation in North Carolina. And a lot of the people from the Bennett's Creek Reservation, not all of them, but a lot of them were people who refused to intermarry with whites because white people had came in, handcuffing all the children as young as 4 years old to enforce specific types of just really fucked up programs, I'll put it like that. And after going through some shit like that, there were a lot of families, they didn't want to intermarry with whites and they were not going to inbreed. So they intermarried with blacks. You know, so my maternal grandmother's parents, they were both mixed, and my her mother, Bernice, she's very, very, very dark skinned with, and a lot of my relatives have like high cheekbones and really defined jawline. They have a lot of features that I don't have, partly because of poverty. My mother was underweight for years before she got pregnant with me because she thought being skinny was more attractive. She looked kind of anorexic when she was younger. And when she got pregnant with me, she mostly just ate potatoes because she didn't have any help. So, like, all the high cheekbones and the defined jawline, my mother's features, I don't have that. And it's not because of bad genes. It's because of poverty. And it's also partly because I lived at the Camp Lejeune military base while the water had radioactive strontium-9 and a whole soup of toxic chemicals in it. And I had to eat it. I had to drink it. I had to take baths in it as a toddler. The way I look, it don't have anything to do with bad genes. It don't have anything to do with not having native ancestry. No. I had to go through a lot at a young age. Even in a picture of me at 6 months old, I had massive bags under my eyes. As a young adult, I've never had an issue with getting puffy bags under my eyes. I've never had puffy bags under my eyes as an adult. But at 6 months old, whew, massive bags. I looked rough. My mom, she'd been through some shit. And, she was a teenager when she had me. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, my mom's mother, both of her parents, they're descended from the families of the Bennett's Creek Reservation that refused to inbreed and refused to intermarry with whites because they were traumatized. And my mom's father's parents, his father, he's descended from a woman from the Seminole Nation named Dora, who came from Eliyah, Florida. And his father, that's his father's ancestry. And, his mother, she's descended from the Lee family, and I don't know a lot about the Lees because I was trying to do some family genealogy research, and everybody on both sides of both my mother and father's side of the family told me no. I wasn't just trying to focus on native ancestry, I was just trying to see the family tree, and I wasn't allowed to see the family tree on my mom's side or my dad's side, so I just scraped for whatever I could through government records.